Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar, hopefully the first of many to come. My name is Ruben. I'm the tech support specialist here at ExoClick, and I'm going to be showing you the everything you need to know about SmartBid. Okay, I think most of us should be already here, so let's get started. Again, as I said, my name is Ruben Recio. I'm the technical support specialist here at ExoClick, and today I'm going to show you the power of SmartBid. I'm going to explain to you everything that you need to know about SmartBid. I'm going to give you some tips on how to use it and the advantages that it can bring you to your campaigns. And hopefully by the end of the webinar, you will be able to see for yourself the advantages and the many improvements that this new pricing model can bring to your campaigns. So without further ado, let's get started. Here are the contents of today's webinar. So first, we're going to start with a brief introduction of what SmartBid is and how does it work. Then we're going to go in detail through the various settings of a SmartBid campaign. We're going to focus on very important settings such as the bid strategies and bid optimization. We're also going to go through the best practices and some recommendations of what you could do on a SmartBid campaign. And I'm going to show you as well a case study of some successful campaigns that followed these practices and ended up with positive results. Then I'm going to show you some figures about the current usage of SmartBid in our network. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to be answering some of the questions that you raise. So, what is SmartBid and how does it work? So, SmartBid is a pricing model that is based on the conversion rate. So, on the percentage of conversions based on the impressions or the clicks from your campaign. In addition to the conversion rate, we also focus on the CPA, the cost per action, or the ROAS, or return on ad spend, which is the percentage of revenue that you expect to receive based on the spending on your campaign. Using these figures, we're able to determine the likelihood of conversion from the various segments of traffic that you're receiving on your campaign. So we will be analyzing the various data points from the traffic that you're getting. And based on the data points, we're able to tell the conversion rate of that traffic and assign the appropriate bid so as to meet the target CPA or target ROAS that you have specified in your campaign settings. In addition, when you're setting up this campaign, you can also determine whether your focus is going to be on traffic, so trying to meet your target while receiving as much traffic as possible, or on conversions, so keeping a very narrow scope and focusing as much as possible on reaching the target CPA or ROAS. This pricing model is available for new campaigns or for old ones. So if you have a campaign that has been running for a while and there's enough data there, you can switch to SmartBid. It is also available for every single format that we have in our network. And with this new pricing model, we believe that we can finally get your campaigns to reach your target objective and assign the appropriate bid on every segment so that it meets your KPIs and your expectations. Now let's take a look at the various settings of a SmartBid campaign. So the first thing that we're deciding when creating a SmartBid campaign is determining the bid strategy. As mentioned before, we have two different bid strategies, the target CPA and the target ROAS. Now I'm going to focus on the target CPA. When creating a target CPA, you need to specify, of course, the CPA that you want for that campaign. Now, before we're able to determine the likelihood of conversion, we you as an advertiser, you need to specify the initial CPM or the initial smart CPM, sorry, or smart CPC bid that you want your campaign to run before we reach that likelihood of conversion from the various segments that you're receiving. That campaign is going to be running with that initial smart CPM or smart CPC bid until we have received enough information on the likelihood of conversion of those segments. And after that, smart bid is when it's going to start applying its magic and applying very different bits based on the likelihood, different bits based on the likelihood of conversion. But until then, that campaign is going to be running with that initial smart TPM or smart CPC bit that you specify here. Once you have determined these bits, you, of course, you need to specify the target conversion that you want to track the results. And after that, you need to choose the bait optimization. So right now we have two types of optimization, a maximize volume optimization or a maximize target CPA or target ROAS optimization. With these optimizations, what they control is the amount of testing and the amount of budget that you're giving the campaign to test sources that haven't reached enough data to determine the likelihood of conversion. We will see later during the webinar, I will show you later during the webinar some figures that give you a clear explanation of what these different optimizations mean. Now, after target CPA, you can also choose target ROAS. With a target ROAS, what we're looking at is at the average value of the conversions that you are getting. And based on that average value of conversions, we're able to determine the return on ad spend that you're getting from that campaign. For those of you that are not familiar with the term return on ad spend, you can see the equivalent with return on investment. So when you're setting up that campaign, you're specifying the share of revenue that you expect to get from that campaign. So an 100% target ROAS campaign is essentially a break-even campaign where you at least try to get as much revenue as the money that you're spending on that campaign. Just like with a target CPA campaign, you also need to specify an initial smart CPM or smart CPC bid. Now, one of the most important differences between a target ROAS campaign and a target CPA campaign is that in a target ROAS campaign, you can only choose goals that have either a fixed value or a dynamic value. This is because, as I said, with target ROAS, we need to calculate the average value of those conversions. So we cannot effectively apply a bid if we don't know the value of those conversions. And then, just like on Target CPA, you can also select the bid optimization for that campaign. Now, let's look in detail at the different types of bid optimization. With a maximized volume, you can see that over time we're still giving a bigger percentage of budget to those test zones and those test segments, meaning that even if those segments haven't reached enough conversions to determine the likelihood of conversion, we're still spending money on them to try and give some opportunity to the system to see what's the real likelihood of conversion, what's the real profitability of those segments. Over time, of course, these test segments are gonna be eventually excluded, and the system is gonna optimize the bits of those segments that have reached a certain amount of data. But with maximized volume, we're still giving the system and the network enough time and enough flexibility to continue testing other segments. With a maximized target CPA or maximized target ROAS optimization, what we're telling the system is that we want to focus only on the zones, or sorry, only on the segments that have reached enough data to determine the likelihood of conversion. That doesn't mean that every single segment is going to be excluded if it hasn't reached the likelihood of conversion, but the amount of traffic that you're going to get from those segments is going to be significantly smaller than with a maximized volume optimization. It is very important that you bear in mind that if you want to do this kind of optimization, you can only apply it on campaigns that have reached at least 30 conversions. If you try to set up a campaign with maximized target CPA or maximized target ROAS optimization from scratch without having enough data, this will not apply. You will be running a campaign that is doing a maximized volume instead. This type of optimization, the maximized target CPA ROAS optimization, can only be applied to campaigns that have reached at least 30 conversions. Now, some last notes in regards to the settings from SmartBid campaigns. The first thing to know is that you can enable zone targeting and all the other types of targeting features that you have on a normal campaign, as well on you can apply them on a SmartBid campaign. The second thing to bear in mind is that bidder at the moment is not allowed in SmartBid campaigns. We will consider whether this is possible or not in the future, but for the time being, it is better to keep separate the optimizations from bidder from the optimizations of SmartBid. And the last thing to bear in mind is that when you create a SmartBid campaign, the optimizations and the changes in bidding done in that campaign are exclusive to that campaign. You cannot copy the optimizations or translate those optimizations to a separate campaign. Now, having mentioned all these different settings, let's have a look at the best practices when setting up a SmartBid campaign. A few things to bear in mind. The first thing to think of when you're creating a SmartBid campaign is to have a clear idea of what type of product you're promoting and what type of payout you're expecting from those conversions. For instance, if you're promoting a rotating product or you're promoting a smart link, it is better to use a target ROAS strategy because that way we will be able to calculate the average value of the conversion from the various kinds of conversions that you're getting through that offer. Since every product is going to have a different payout based on the country, device, etc., it is better to use a target ROAS so that we have a clear idea of the average value that you're getting from those conversions and calculate the return on ad spend in consequence. The other thing to bear in mind is that SmartBid requires a certain amount of time and a certain amount of budget in order to receive enough information and do the corresponding changes in bidding. Think of SmartBid of a medium-term investment. Do not expect to have immediate results. It can be effective, but only after a certain period of time. And now, when we're thinking of creating a SmartBid campaign, we're thinking a successful SmartBid campaign, if I may say. We're thinking of a three-step approach. We're thinking of an initial approach, an initial step, sorry, of prospecting, of learning about our traffic. Then we do an initial optimization, just doing some splitting campaigns and some further changes to make sure that the budget and time invested in those campaigns is really well spent. And a third stage, sorry, of aggressive optimization. I'm going to talk about these various steps now. So the initial step, the step of prospecting, when you're creating your campaign, you need to be flexible with the target CPA or target ROAS that you have in mind. Of course, you want to make it as close to your target payout as much as possible, but try to make it equal or even decrease it just a tiny bit so that the campaign has enough flexibility in testing the various sources of traffic that you're going to get. Then, as I was mentioning when I was explaining the various the maximize volume and maximize CPA optimizations, you're going to start this campaign with a maximize volume because this way we're giving the system enough time to test the sources and increase the chances of getting more data of these sources and determining the right likelihood of conversion of these segments. And lastly, if you're creating a campaign that is targeting a very wide segment or a very high amount of zones, consider enabling a frequency capping of 1 impression per 24 hours so that you can keep a control on your spending. We're going to keep our campaigns with these initial settings for a certain amount of time, usually a week or so. And after that, we're going to carry out our initial optimization. So what we're going to do is to split the campaigns. How are we going to do that? Usually what we're going to do is to focus on the zones that have generated the most spending and put them on a separate campaign so that the original campaign can continue testing. For example, if you have a campaign with a $100 budget and $80 are spent in just two zones, you're going to split the campaigns so that one campaign focuses in these two zones and the other campaign can continue testing and finding out more about our traffic. Then we're going to start steadily but slowly increasing the target CPA and target ROS so that we can finally meet our expectations. We're going to do this slowly, but we're going to make sure that it has a positive result in our campaigns. And lastly, we're going to carry out some other fine tunings, such as excluding certain sub IDs that might not be providing useful traffic for us, or we're going to start rotating variations, doing some A/B testing to find out which offer, which landing page works best for the campaign. And finally, in the last step, we're going to finally carry out an aggressive optimization. Assuming that the campaign has reached 30 conversions, we're going to enable a maximize CPA or maximize ROAS optimization. Because this way, we don't need to continue spending on test sources. We can focus only on the segments where we know the likelihood of conversion. We're going Of course, SmartBid is gonna do most of the heavy lifting for us because it's gonna be switching the bids based on every single segment that we're getting on that campaign. But that doesn't mean that we're gonna simply neglect that campaign. You can continue fine-tuning and do other optimizations such as continue rotating variations or focusing on certain keywords to reach the target CPA that you specified on the campaign settings. Now, after doing these various optimizations, should you feel that the traffic that you're getting is not enough or that you have capped the too many sources of traffic, you can revert the bid optimization to a maximized volume or do some other changes, such as being more lenient with the frequency capping or even removing it completely. The case studies that I'm going to show you now have followed these various advices that I've just mentioned, and you will see the end result after a certain amount of time, how it exceeded the target settings that were specified originally in the campaign. So these two campaigns were carried out by the same advertiser. They were focusing on separate zones, but they were promoting the same product, and they were using the same ad format and country, so native US. As you can see on the screen right now, it followed a target ROAS strategy with a break-even target ROAS, an initial CPM of zero point 0.2, and just like any starting campaign, it followed a maximized volume optimization. During the initial week already, you can see that this first campaign was already getting an ROAS that was higher than what was originally specified. But over time, and after following these various optimizations, you can see that the ROAS continued increasing steadily until the third week of the campaign, when it exceeded all expectations and reached an 153% ROAS. For the second campaign, we followed the advertiser followed similar settings, with the exception that the first campaign was focusing on specific zones, and this campaign was focusing on all the other zones available for that segment. So remember that when I was talking about best cases, about best practices, we were saying that one of the best steps is to continue splitting campaigns based on the amount of budget that is being redirected to specific segments. This way, we can let a campaign continue testing and finding out more about our traffic. So for this campaign, the results in the first week were not as successful. The ROAS was below the target, but as just like in the other campaign, after certain optimizations and a certain amount of time, SmartBid was able to finally find out the proper bid for every segment being sent to that campaign. And as you can see, over time, the target ROAS went up to 120%. So much, much better results than what was originally being given to the campaign. So as you can see, these are two very different campaigns, but the result was in the end was the same. With enough time and with the proper optimizations, SmartBid is able to tell the proper bid to reach the desire for every likelihood of conversion from our segments and reach the desired benefit. The outcomes of our campaigns were great, and even though they started in a different time, they started with different results. The After a certain time, the benefits were clear for both of them. If you want to find out more about these case studies, you can check it out in the QR code that you're seeing in the screen, as well as in the URL that you're seeing just below. And if you want to find out more in general about SmartBid, you can check out our blog post also in this QR code here. And now let's go to one of the last parts of the webinar, which is checking out the current situation of SmartBid in ExoClick. So right now, most of our advertisers are favoring a target CPA strategy over target ROAS, but that doesn't mean, of course, that target ROAS is less profitable. It's just a difference in the type of products that are being promoted in the network, as well as difference in the key performance indicators from each campaign. As for the favored ad format in every SmartBid campaign, we see a predominance of banners, but videos and native ads also have their share. And in terms of offers, we see that the majority of the campaigns are being dedicated to dating offers, with an important share as well going to webcam offers. And here you can see an evolution on the amount of SmartBid campaigns that we have in our network ever since it was originally delivered to all of you. We started with a very modest amount of just less than 500 campaigns, but over time you can see that the majority of advertisers have seen the benefits of the potential of SmartBid, and right now we're finding ourselves at an average of 2,000 active campaigns. And that's about it for our webinar. I hope that the information that you found here is useful. And now I'm going to answer some of the questions that you have raised.
Should I switch from maximum volume to maximum CPA after 30 conversions, or does SmartBid do it automatically?
When you create the campaign, if you have already selected maximize CPA, the system will change it automatically. But you need to bear in mind that before you reach 30 conversions, you're not going to be running maximize CPA. You're going to be running maximize volume, even if your targeting settings say otherwise, because we need to reach those 30 conversions. Now, once you have reached those 30 conversions, then yes, the system is going to change that automatically. You will probably see it because the amount of traffic that you're getting in your campaign is going to diminish significantly. That's why it's a completely valid strategy, but you should consider letting the campaign run for a longer period of time, at least during the initial testing phase, so you can determine even better the likelihood of conversion of the various segments that you're getting.
Another question here. Is it better to switch an existing campaign to SmartBid or to create a new one from scratch?
That depends on the target segments that you're getting and also on the amount of information that you have in your existing campaigns. So if you have a campaign that has been running for a long period of time and you have plenty of information about your conversions, then sure, it's completely valid to switch to SmartBid, because this way SmartBid has already the information and can start optimizing the bids right away. Now, if you don't know much about the traffic and you want to test what's the various segments that you're getting, then it is better to start a campaign from scratch. You don't have to switch from an existing campaign. You can start from with SmartBid right away. Again, with a maximized volume, you don't have to worry because you're going to be running that campaign with the initial smart CPM or smart CPC bid that you specified. And from there, once we determine the likelihood of conversion, the bids are going to start being optimized.
Another question here. What's the difference between SmartBid and the bidder?
So that's a question that we got often. So it's although they may look similar, they're actually very different. The biggest difference is that SmartBid checks every segment in detail, whereas Bidder usually, when it carries out the automatic bidding optimization, it only focuses on zones. If you use SmartBid, you're not only going to be checking zones, but you're going to be checking various data points that you're getting from your traffic, the various features of the traffic. Um, Another thing to bear in mind is that smart bid right now doesn't change your targeting settings. It's not like bidder where you could specify blocking rules that would automatically block the targeting features of your campaign or that would block zones if they're not profitable. Smart bid doesn't do that. Smart bid just optimizes the bid. And if a segment after a certain period of time is determined to not be profitable, the bid is going to be switched to zero. But that segment is still going to appear in your campaign settings.
Another question here. How much data is analyzed for the smart bid? It was the last 30 days for bidder. Is it the same for smart bid?
We check various periods of time. At the moment, we not only focus on 30 days, but we continue checking through various time periods. Um, if your concern is that after 30 days a non-performing segment is going to start receiving traffic again, that doesn't happen precisely because we're checking these various periods of time.
So why were 30 conversions chosen as a key indicator? Is this a general rule of thumb for media buyers around the world?
This was done after doing some testing on the various campaigns that we have and getting what was the best amount to actually have a good idea of the likelihood of conversion of the segments that you're getting without capping the traffic. So if it was a smaller amount, for instance, most likely most of your campaigns would stop right away and you wouldn't have enough time to actually find out what are the profitable segments. 30 conversions was deemed the best amount to start optimizing right away without limiting too much your traffic intake.
So within the statistics, is there an overview of the changes and optimization smart bid makes for your campaign?
At the moment, no, we don't have a history of changes done by SmartBid, just like Bidder has. But you can see the various changes in CPM by analyzing the different sources of traffic that you're getting on your campaign. So if you're just like where you are reviewing the evolution of the prices on a smart CPM campaign, you could do the same with SmartBid while checking your statistics.
Should I let the campaign run with bidder before I enable smart bid?
That's a very good question. At the moment, no, we don't advise that. If you don't if you don't have any idea at all of the traffic that you're getting, you could use Bidder to limit some of the zones or some of the features. But honestly, with SmartBid, if you use a maximize volume optimization, you start testing right away. So if you have an idea of what are your limitations for the product or for the traffic that you're getting, you should start with SmartBids right away. If you want to know more about the differences between Bidder and SmartBid, I would say that the key difference is that with Bidder, you can use Bidder if you have a really narrow budget, if you can really afford to have some time testing sources. If you're really checking per minute or per every cent of benefit that you're getting, then Bidder would be your most recommended option because of this blocking feature. But if you want to allow some flexibility, then SmartBid is better because when you're using SmartBid, again, you're checking every single segment. The amount of detail that SmartBid goes is much bigger than what Bidder does. We have another question that says, how many creatives do you recommend starting a new SmartBid campaign? Well, there is no difference with other campaigns. That depends on the ad format that you're using or the product that you're using. There's no smart bid doesn't favor one variation over the other. The amount of information that you're getting, of course, if you want to do some A/B testing, then I would recommend you to have as many variations as possible. But there's no significant difference in the amount of variations that you're getting. So we have another question that says, in the past, I've had an issue with my tracking solution, and now the conversion data in ExoClick is not correct. Will this affect SmartBid? So yes, because we're based on the information that we have in ExoClick. So let's say that you have notified more conversions than what you actually received. In that case, then maybe you should consider adjusting the CPA or the ROAS accordingly. So because the conversions deemed for that specific segment will be higher, then you're gonna have to be a little bit more lenient with the CPA, because with the CPA or with the target ROAS, because at the end of the day, you're not getting as much revenue or as much profit as you're seeing in your statistics. But again, what is important to know here is that we're going to be focusing on the information of ExoClick. So if you see some changes on ExoClick coming from their tracking solution, then of course, first try to find out what's happening on the tracking solution, but then always remember that we're going to be based on the information we have in ExoClick. Okay, so is there any other question? I don't think we have any more questions. What if the initial CPM is too low? Sorry, do you mind? It won't get any traffic. Um, well, if you set up a smart CPM campaign that the CPM is too low, is it not going to get any traffic? Most likely the answer is yes. If ideally your initial CPM, as we have seen in the best practices, during the first stages of SmartBid, is it's possible that you're not going to reach your target. And if you want to receive some quality traffic, then you need to set up the initial smart CPM or smart CPC bid accordingly. You need to try and be able to get the first impression or the first click, or try to reach a user that it's really going to be profitable for you. You can keep a low initial CPM if you want, if you're concerned about the spending. But at the end of the day, when the smart bid campaign is running using the initial smart CPM or smart CPC bid, you're essentially running a CPM or CPC campaign. It's only after we have determined the likelihood of conversion that's when smart bid comes into play. Does it take into consideration G2 conversions? Yes, you can too. So when you're creating a campaign, you're specifying the conversion that you're going to focus. If you have 10 conversions, you can choose whatever conversion you're going to use for that campaign. It can be a landing page visit, it can be a sign up, it can be a sale. It's up to you. It's up to how you configure the conversion tracking. When I choose to optimize towards my target CPA, does it mean that all zones that did not perform will have a zero CPM price? Um, if you're doing a maximize volume, after a certain period of time, once it's clear that the target CPA is not going to be reached, yes. If you're what you need to bear in mind, however, is that with maximized volume, it might take some time until we essentially shut down that segment. With target CPA, if you choose a maximize target CPA or maximize ROAS optimization, you will still receive a very, very little amount of traffic, but you're not going to be the amount of traffic that you're going to get there is going to be virtually zero. It's I mean, just a certain amount. I think I cannot tell the specific amount, but if you're concerned about spending money on zones that are not profitable, and if you want to keep it really, really focused on zones that are sorry, I keep saying zones, but it's actually segments. It goes even it goes even further than we have done before. So going back to your question, if you're concerned about spending money on segments that are not profitable, then you should go to a maximize CPA ROAS strategy. But again, only after your campaign has reached 30 conversions. If I run SmartBid for a long time and I get like 100 zones with different bids, can I duplicate the campaign with the same zones bidding? No. No, because again, the optimizations are carried out specifically for that campaign. This is not like Bidder. When you Bidder, you can see the bids being modified per zone. If you duplicate that campaign, then yes. But when you are carrying out a smart bid campaign, those optimizations are exclusive to that campaign. Because again, it's not only something that is happening at the zone ID level. We're checking many different data points. So when you're creating a brand new campaign, that campaign starts with zero data. We don't know the conversions of the traffic that you're getting. Any more questions? Anything else that any of you would like to ask? No, I think that's it. I'm giving a green light to finish this webinar. So again, I really hope that you found this interesting, and I appreciate all of you for, well, all of us here at ExoClick appreciate you for being here. If you have any other questions that haven't been resolved or that come out later to you, please feel free to contact your account manager or to contact your or to contact us to contact the customer success department through our contact form. And if anything from this presentation wasn't clear, you can later review it because we're going to send you a recording of this webinar right after it finishes. So I think I'm gonna shut it down here. Thank you very much for coming, and see you all in the next webinar.